Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I am a writer for Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for Geek Vibes Nation and also a co host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. We have some really fun titles to talk about. So I'm going to kick this party off with Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo.
Yay!
Brothers. And really nice slipcover. Back here. Nothing very exciting in the there's no reversible art. I do like the disc art though. That's pretty cool. So I really like this a lot. I don't know, have you gotten a chance to see this? Because I know you're a fan of the series.
Yeah, not yet. And my wife Jessica, just like a couple of weeks ago, she was like, "Do we have a new Scooby-Doo movie coming to us this for Halloween?" Because it's been like a yearly tradition the past couple of years. And I was like, "Yes, it's coming, but not we haven't gotten to it yet."
Yeah, I think it's really great. I think that it might be, I think definitely one of the better directed to DVD Scooby-Doo offerings. And this really pays wonderful homage to the original series and more specifically the classic villains. Like they actually use the classic villains to tie into the plot, which I think is kind of neat. And speaking of, the plot isn't really groundbreaking, but I think it's really clever and it's engaging enough to keep you sort of glued the entire runtime. And I also really love the message of being your authentic self. The big, I guess, hubbaloo about this was like Velma coming out, which I think they handled really interestingly. Like they did it very matter of fact, I guess is the best way to put it. Like none of the gang seemed shocked. They didn't have like a big, very special episode situation going on about it, which I think is kind of the best way to handle it. It's interesting because when I was reading more about like this whole thing, I guess in the Velma series, they're going to maybe claw this back a little bit, or she might at least be bisexual canonically. So we'll see. Yeah. I don't know, but good for her. I love it.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of a cool thing. And again, they use that as sort of like being your true authentic self. And then there's also a goth character who is like kind of weird and he's like a misfit. I don't know if he's on the cover. No, he's not. Oh, he's right, this guy in the top hat.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, like they again, he's like the weird outcast, but he learns to like love himself and be his authentic self. So I think that's a cool message. It's not groundbreaking, but it is nice. I will say there is also a really fun side plot with Fred and Daphne, which I think actually came off like legit really endearing. But I don't want to spoil it. So, just know that they kind of have a really nice moment and it's not like it'll pass the Bechdel test, I guess, is all I'll say.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah, and the other major thing that I loved about this was the art style is gorgeous looking. Like they retain a lot of the original look, even though this isn't hand drawn. It still has that beautiful like watercolor type aesthetic. And I just was bowled over. I really, really wish we had a Blu-ray of this, but maybe if it sells really well, maybe they'll consider doing that. But gosh, it is so nice looking. So yeah, I really liked it. They do have a couple like little bonus episodes as extras. I kind of wish they would have had a commentary or maybe a featurette, but yeah, it's really great. And again, it's probably one of the most gorgeous looking um direct to video Scooby-Doo films.
That's great. Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. And every time they do release one of these new Scooby-Doo films, I do wish they would put them out on Blu-ray, but it
Yeah.
seems to be like less and less Warner's taking chances on some of these smaller properties. So I'm glad
Well,
we're getting new ones
yeah.
though.
I was just gonna say, like, kudos to Warner Brothers for even putting this out because I know, Disney's been doing a lot of just direct to digital. I think they're like testing the waters with that, which kind of sucks. But um, thank you, Warner Brothers, for still putting out physical media. So I hope this sells really well. It's a really cool direct to video movie, and it's a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to be good Halloween viewing for this household. Uh, so I'm just gonna warn everyone. My entire slate this week is Kino related, like Kino Lorber slash Kino Classics. They have not bought me off or anything. It just lined up that I watched a lot of Kino stuff this week. So just warning you in advance. So my first title, this is from Kino Lorber, like the newer film division, is Olga from earlier this year, which it's one of those films like you talked about a couple like weeks ago, like Murina, where it's like some interesting international cinema that people may have overlooked, but like it's a very much worth a look. So Olga, this is about a Ukrainian gymnast who her mom is like a reporter and is kind of reporting on some of like the she's more of a like a political reporter and like investigating kind of corruption within Ukraine and all that type of stuff until like at the very beginning of the movie their car is kind of like rammed into and no one is like killed or anything, but they realize that they are being targeted by the government for like the mother's activism and reporting. Um, so Olga, the gymnast, she is shipped off to Switzerland for her safety to train at this facility. And basically, the movie is her being kind of out of place in this facility. Like in this facility, the people are usually speaking like French, but no one can really communicate very well with Olga, who is from the Ukraine. So she's like trying to like learn the language and also kind of deal with being away from her home during a very important time in the country's history, where there's a lot of like revolution happening. So you see her constantly like checking in on news reports, seeing like areas that she's grown up in, like under siege and like being firebombed and like just people rising up against the government. And so she kind of feels kind of torn between wanting to do her best, like as like a gymnast who is training for like worldwide attention. I don't think it's quite the Olympics. I think it's like a European event that she wants to qualify for. Mixed with like her feeling like she is missing out on everything that's going on in her country. She's worried about her mom, who's right in the thick of this. Like they almost already got killed once, so it's just kind of like that kind of dramatic tension throughout of just like her, just a lot of stuff going on with her. And it's really well done. It's a really tight movie. It's like just at like 90 minutes, maybe just a little. Yeah, it's 89 minutes long, so it's very compact and concise in its storytelling. But every minute I think is utilized well. There's not really a lot of like extraneous plot lines or anything. It's just a really interesting character study mixed with like some political background along with it. And this actually incorporates some footage from the 2013 uprising in the Ukraine. So it's kind of like goes back and forth between this narrative with like some actual documentary footage that kind of gives it like an added air of authenticity. So it makes it even more intense of just seeing like some of these like places like on fire or police bashing against their citizens and stuff. So it's very it's harrowing, but it's very interesting. So there's no special features on this, unfortunately. I think this would be a really interesting one to get like a commentary or at least like an in-depth piece on like kind of the political. Like we know that there's a lot going on in the Ukraine now with Russia, but just more context that could probably be derived. But it's still, you get the movie in like a really nice high definition. It sounds good. Olga, it's very good, and it's very timely, and I recommend it if you're just looking for more interesting international cinema.
Nice. And you know I always am. So
Yes.
I think when I think Olga, I think of Hey Arnold.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that doesn't add anything to that particular discourse, but you know, I like
I would
it.
say like if Hey Arnold was released on Blu-ray, I would definitely cover that in a heartbeat on here. I love that show.
Oh, me too. So I'm gonna keep this Kino train a rolling here. With my next title, which is from Kino Studio Classics, and that is The Score, directed by Frank Oz. So this has a slipcover, of course. So as you can see, this is both a 4K and a Blu-ray. Here's the back. And let's take this off. These usually never have reversible cover art, but I'll show you the discs here. Not pinch my finger. So yeah, this I had never seen this before, so this was really fun. Kind of the big I think sell is the actors. I mean, look how like absolutely stacked that cast is. And so it's kind of funny because this sort of reminded me of the Rick and Morty heist episode.
Yeah.
And by that I mean it definitely follows the like grizzled thief getting one big last score, and then you have the rookie who's in this case played by Edward Norton, and then you have like Marlon Brando playing like the one pulling all the strings. I heard of this movie, of course, because I know this was technically Brando's final film that like he completed. I think he might have like done a voice work for something that never got released, but this is like technically the last finished project that he ever worked on before he passed away. And it's interesting because a lot of the actors only kind of signed on because they wanted to work with Brando. So this was like a big draw for them as well. And the movie is fine. It is very by the numbers, like heist, in terms of a heist movie, but yet it's really it's definitely engaging enough, I think, to keep you glued. I mean, there are some like cringier moments, like Norton's character plays somebody with a mental disability, and it's really cringy.
That's a
And
choice.
yes, and the whole time it's just like, oh man. But it's such a big part of like the ruse, and so there's kind of no getting around it, unfortunately. But yeah, other than that, it was fine. I mean, like I said, it's very by the numbers. It is beautifully shot. The acting, of course, I think helps elevate everything, and there are some decent twists and turns throughout. So all these features, I believe, have been ported over from previous releases. I don't think that there's anything new except for the new transfer, of course. And this was supervised by the DP, which I always love. It does look really good. They use a lot of like beautiful locations. Those really pop. Like you can kind of tell that so I've never seen this before, but there's a lot of like darkly lit scenes that I feel like really do contribute to this new restoration. Everything looks clean and clear. um Again, this isn't the most vibrant looking movie, but it does have, again, nice cinematography, and I think the 4K really like shows that strength of the film, so I appreciated that. And it sounds great as well. So I really enjoyed it. I definitely, it would have been nice if there was maybe like an additional commentary track from a historian or something, but you get to hear from like the two major players. Um, and I really love Frank Oz. I like his work. I especially like when he directs.
Mhm.
Marlon Brando was notoriously mean to Frank Oz during this. His pet name for him was Miss Piggy. If you know Frank Oz,
Yeah.
he voiced Miss Piggy and various other like Muppets. Probably most famously Yoda. Um, but that kind of sucks because I think that it's not the most incredible movie, but I think with everything going on and all the drama, I think it did kind of come out probably better than expected. So yeah, it's a fun movie. I definitely highly recommend it. Again, it is very by the numbers, but it's good. And gosh, you love seeing these actors like playing off each other. So for that, I mean, that's almost kind of worth the price of admission for me.
Yeah, that's one that's on my radar. It's one that I always saw and when I was younger, like in the video stores. I remember
Mm.
that cover so clearly, just walking down, like one day I'll watch it, and I guess it's this year. I guess I'll finally watch it.
That day
I
has
do really
come.
love those actors. Yeah. Moving on to my next title. This is another Kino Classics. This is I've heard the Mermaids singing, which is an independent film from Canada, I believe from the 1980s. Um, yes, yeah, I believe it's the 1980s. And this, it's really interesting. It's not like a big like showy movie, but it's a very engaging movie within what it's trying to do. Basically, it's the story of this woman right here who it's kind of set up that she's like telling her story to the audience like through a video recorder that's set up, and she's kind of telling about like her basic experiences of like she's kind of like a waifish character who's just kind of always kind of screwing up, but like in an endearing way in her life. So, like no one really treats her with a lot of respect, and so she's kind of like clumsy, and she's kind of it's not like in an obnoxious way, but she's just kind of like a lady who doesn't have a lot of confidence, who just doesn't is just kind of like hasn't found her place in life until she finally gets a an assistant job at like for this I think she's like an art dealer or something to deal with art. She's like art gallery type thing. Um, and what's really interesting about this, and I saw it described like this in the back, but it took reading that to contextualize it in this way, is like this is like one of the early queer films that's not about being queer, because like this woman, she does develop a crush on her boss, who is just like a really she's pretty much the opposite of the main character. Like she's very in control. She's very like good at her job, and like very powerful within her world. So our main character, she's really looking up to that, and she does, like I said, develop a crush on her. But and her boss also has like a kind of on again off again girlfriend who it's kind of our main character is just kind of curious about this. It kind of like opens her eyes, but she's also a little bit jealous, but like not in like a vengeful way. She's just more of just like, oh, I have a crush on this person, but they're with someone else, and I kind of don't know how to feel about it. But it's not. This isn't a movie about her sexuality. It just happens to be part of like this woman's kind of coming of age and like coming into her own like acceptance of herself, which I really like. So this movie is very like layered and interesting, despite not having a lot of like big narrative like developments. It's just kind of like a series of just kind of like interesting moments of this woman trying to uh, live in her own body. Basically, I know that's kind of like a basic thing to say, but it's just like her existing is enough to make it an interesting film. And once again, this isn't too long. It's 83 minutes long. and I think it uses like every moment pretty well. There's a lot of really funny moments. There's a lot of poignant moments, and the ending it leaves you on is like it doesn't leave you exactly where you expect, which I also kind of liked. It kind of like subverted my expectations. So overall, if you kind of like, if you're like a fan of kind of like indie dramedies of like the current era, I think this is like a really interesting forebear to a lot of those types of
Hmm.
movies. So this, like I said, this is from Canada, and the basically the Canadian government gave this. They were like celebrating like a special like monument like a in their film history. So they gave like an endowment to a bunch of like independent Canadian cinema, and this was one of them to get a 4K restoration, which is what is on this disc, and it looks really nice. You do have that kind of gritty, early like 80s slash or late 80s slash early 90s independent feel, but like it's all naturally resolved and like there's not a lot of like damage or anything like that. It's a really crisp picture within like its original intended aesthetic, and it sounds nice, and it's actually got a pretty good number of special features. The director provides a new commentary track. There is a short film from the director that's included. There is as a part of this restoration, they toured around with it at a few like art house, like bigger art houses around the country. So at the Metrograph in New York City, you have the director's intro and a post film Q&A that's included on here, and along with one like a video essay from a film historian. So this is a pretty well-rounded release for this. They went through the trouble of restoring it, and they treated it with respect. So if this sounds interesting to you, I've heard the Mermaids singing. It's a really endearing, interesting film, and I know you're very interested in queer cinema as well. I think you would really just appreciate what this has to offer without it being like I said, just like about like being queer. So I
Yeah.
think it's interesting.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. It's definitely sounds like something that would be up my alley. And I think that's interesting. You had, because this totally wasn't planned, but it's sort of like the trick or treat Scooby-Doo, like the how they used the character, like who the character is in a way
Mhm.
that's not like, just a matter of factly. So um
Mhm.
I don't know a good transition into my next title, so I'm just gonna like leap right into it or flap right into it
Ooh,
with the bat.
nice. I
You
like the
like that?
wordplay.
Like what I did there?
Yeah,
So okay. Have you seen this one yet?
I have not.
Okay, so I was really excited because I had seen this a bunch of times before, but this is a film from believe it was 1959. Yes. That went into the public domain. So anytime that you saw like 30 horror movie pack or whatever, it would usually have this.
Mhm.
And the restorations were kind of garbage, but I'll get into that later. So the best way to describe the bat is basically a whodunit mixed with old dark house trappings. And the commentary goes into way more detail than what I'm going to give you, but just a quick overview. The person that wrote the original play, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what that's called, that was turned into the bat, is sort of like what we consider like the first old dark house movie, and by that or like movie or play or like different media. And what I mean by that is it's usually like a murder mystery set in a mansion, because these were like I believe they originated as plays. They were very self-contained. So, James Whale actually did a movie called The Old Dark House, which is fantastic, and that kind of epitomizes what that genre is. So, this is basically a modern update, modern in the 50s, comparatively speaking. And again, this definitely is a old dark house movie. There is a killer that is kind of fabulous. Like he's just dressed in like black and he's got a black hood and he's got like razor for fingers, a
Oh.
la Freddy Krueger, but like many years before Freddy. So that's, I
Mhm.
thought, really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, while the mystery angle is a bit lacking, I think this movie has a nice pulpy noir flavored, and couple that with his spooky tone, and you get a really fun movie. Vincent Price is in this, and of course he is fantastic, and he's just at his campy best here. He's just living his best villain life.
Mhm.
But is he the villain? I don't know. You'll have to watch the movie to find out. And I have to say that I was completely blown away by this transfer. Like it is stunning. So this is a brand new I believe 4K restoration. Um it's also worth noting that the Film Detective did put this out earlier, a few years ago, and it was bare bones. I believe this is a brand new restoration, even. This has a booklet, and that is exclusive to this release and not the older release. And it gives you a lot of good context behind the film and the play, um, stuff like that. And so the gentleman that did this booklet, or wrote the essay for the booklet, um, does a fantastic commentary track, and again, it like lays out this entire history of the play and the movie versions and like the making of this film. It's really incredible. So all of these are exclusive to this release. The older Film Detective Blu-ray release does not have these. It's just bare bones. So that's nice. Again, I was just completely like, again, just blown away because this transfer looks so nice. It's so crisp and clean, and there's like a really nice contrast between like the black and white, and there's a lot of details that, quite frankly, like pop, because I've seen this many times, and again, either on cable or like one of those like 50 horror movie packs, like
Mhm.
they just use really bad like prints. So this is probably hands down the best this film's ever looked. So if you have been wanting to see this, it's the perfect time. And these extras are fantastic. So I have to say this sort of makes my short list of favorite releases of this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because the movie's not great, but I love like cozy mysteries, and then
Mhm.
you have like Agnes Moorehead and Vincent Price,
Yeah.
and then it's just like, it's just such a fun, I would say, comfort watch. Like this is kind of the quintessential fall winter. You get bundled up, you put this on, you're gonna have a good time. It's not perfect. Like I think the guy in the commentary track, sorry, Jason Nay, hope I'm saying that right. He describes, I mean, he goes into more detail about like what kind of works and doesn't work about it. I mean, there are some silly things like, um, it's kind of hard to get into because I don't want to give away like the plot, like the finale, but there are some things that when you know the solution, you're like, okay, that kind of doesn't make sense. But again, it's so absurd and fun that you sort of just don't care about the little like, maybe logical problems the movie has, because again, it's fun. It's sort of a fun watch around this time of year, and gosh, it's like Film Detective just did a fantastic job. um
Yeah, that sounds great. We're in a like a golden age of Vincent Price on physical media.
yeah.
So I'm glad to see like even these films that have been released are getting new restorations. So that's exciting. Um, I'm going to circle back to thematically to my first film with another gymnast inspired film. This is a Goldengirl from Kino Classics and Scorpion Releasing. So I had never heard about this, but it intrigued me because it has James Coburn, who I really like in it, and Susan Anton. She's people might know her from like Baywatch and a lot of other type of uh, classic, like kind of like she was like pretty big in the '80s and early '90s. But so this one, like I said, I'm a big like watching actual sports, not my favorite thing. Watching movies about sports, very interesting to me. And this one is unique because they try to inject a genre twist on it. And it's like kind of sci-fi, but they don't really do enough with it to really make it like important, really. The basic conceit of this is there are these like Nazi scientists who are they have raised this girl played by Susan Anton to basically she's not a bionic woman, but she is raised to be raised and trained to be like the pinnacle of like what a woman can be. So like she can like run the fastest and like do everything like they like you see her like in even like in media training, so they're like consultants who are asking her like potential questions she would be asked like during a press conference, and they kind of like gauge her responses and stuff and like see what like trips her up and stuff, and so they're just like hyper focused on this girl. And while that is an interesting concept, they don't really go really far with it, because besides like the main fact is like she is slowly trying or breaking free from kind of under their control while trying to gear up for these Olympic Games. So she kind of starts realizing that things aren't completely right about her situation, and she just kind of it's kind of like her waking up out of a dream of just like, oh, maybe I don't want to be controlled by these men and like being told what to do. And then James Coburn plays like kind of like a coach figure to her, and he's kind of like he's not like a completely good guy because he's working with the bad guys, but he's not completely bad either. He's kind of just like kind of surveying the whole like landscape of the narrative and just kind of like figuring out what is going on and what his place in it he wants to be. But eventually this just kind of turns into kind of like a kind of sports Olympic type film with a little bit of like resistance and all that type of stuff. It's kind of tonally incomplete and narratively incomplete, but at its essence it's an entertaining movie, and like the performances are pretty strong. uh it's not it's not a boring movie. It's just kind of like a slightly illogical movie,
Hmm.
which I mean, sometimes you get, but you can still be entertained by it. So I think this movie promises more than it delivers, but it's still a decent watch. It could have been a lot better if they really leaned into it. Like if this had taken like even a more overt kind of like rollerball type approach to it, where it's like was heavily like influenced by kind of like a dystopian like overlord type thing. But what you get is decent in execution. I just think they didn't really have the confidence to really go for it. But it is what it is. But this has been given a new 4K restoration from Studio Canal, and it looks really nice. And this also has a lot of Scorpion releasing titles don't always have a lot of special features, but this has a pretty decent assortment. There's a new audio commentary. There's new cast interviews with Susan Anton and one of the other cast members. There is a featurette on composer Bill Conti, who kind of like talks about his work and like his career a little bit. And yeah, all of this together, it's a really well-rounded package. If you're a fan of this, if you're a fan of like the Olympics, kind of weird sci-fi, or just Susan Anton as she is like an actress, then it's a decent release. I can't say it's like the best of the titles I'm talking about today, but it's entertaining enough.
Yeah. Now where does this fall in the Golden Girls series timeline?
This is a prequel. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
No, that does sound really interesting. It definitely sounds like it's worth you know, maybe a rental or like a try before you buy situation. So I was just with my last title I was talking about the old dark house trope in films and plays. So I kind of purposely did this one for my next movie for my follow-up, which is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And here, look cover. Um, no reversible art, but here's the inside. There's a digital copy that is will be in your copy. It's just not in mine right now. So yeah, this is definitely interesting because it's one that I've heard a lot of mixed to good things about, but I really, really wanted to see this. I was like kind of obsessed with seeing this. um and yeah, I definitely am somebody that likes A24 horror, like, but I like a lot wide variety of horror, so don't come at me. And I wasn't disappointed. This is definitely a really interesting update on what we would consider like the modern old dark house approach. You know, it is 99% a single location. It's in a mansion. There's a bunch of rich people, and the main conceit is they're playing a game called Bodies, 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 which is like you have to kind of find out like someone plays dead, and then you have to find out like who the killer is, and then dead bodies really do pop up. And then everything just goes to hell from there. So yeah, it is really a fun time. It is definitely darkly funny and very savage in its satire. Like it definitely takes no prisoners when it comes to like picking apart Gen Z sensibilities, but I think it does it in a way that doesn't feel cheap, I guess is how I want to put it, or it doesn't come off like some 40 or 50-year-old being like, I got him now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't come off in a way that is like very eye rolling. Like I did like the approach, and I could kind of tell that it was a younger person that sort of wrote and shepherded this project. And yeah, I really liked it. God, I don't want to talk about the finale, but the finale is so satisfying, is all I'll say. Like it definitely is like, oh, when you watch it a second time, which I did with the commentary track, you're like, oh yeah, like okay, I get it now, and then working your way back. So like I said, this does have a commentary track, and you know that is like my favorite feature. And you know, it has some deleted scenes and a featurette. So it's nice because this wasn't just dumped out. You know, they did put some like attention into it. You know, anytime that you can get a commentary track, it seems like kind of rare these days. So when there's a new movie that has that, I'm like, yes, I love that. Like the new Scream has a audio commentary track, and I was like so for that. So you know, love that. And yeah, I like the movie a lot. Have you seen this, right?
I have not. No, not yet.
Okay. um it's a fun one. Like I said, it's one of those that like um the ending definitely is like so satisfying. It's like yes, like I really like how it, where it went, and like it fits very much in the keeping of like the film's sort of like wry sardonic sort of sensibilities. So
Yeah, that's great. That's one I've been really looking forward to because I really like the cast and I love A24, so I'm completely on board for that one. Moving on to my next title, it's another Kino Classic Scorpion releasing, like co-presenting, and that is The Sporting Club from filmmaker Larry Pierce. And this one is wild. It's something. So this one, it's a basically a kind of class, like a clashing of class dynamics type movie, mixed within, like, it has some genre elements as well. It is about this kind of resort, where there is, like, some of the wealthy people go to kind of relax and just like indulge in their rich people ideals and all that type of stuff. And one weekend, like a rich guy and his girlfriend invite one of his friends who's not quite as wealthy up to this resort, and his friend kind of acts as like a surrogate to the audience of just seeing kind of some of the weird stuff that's going on up there. Like, his friend really enjoys messing with people and engaging in duels with people, but he's like, oh, like, he'll the first time you don't know, but he's like, oh, it's just rubber bullets, it's fine, like, I'm just messing with you. But then things kind of take a turn at times, and then there's also a clashing of there's like some, like, a motorcycle gang that's kind of getting mixed up with kind of the rich affluent people, and there's also a, like, just as kind of like a ticking time bomb type thing. They're all trying to work towards opening this time capsule from, like, obviously the past, that can kind of give them some insight into the history of their club. That's all I'll say. So there are some, like I said, there's some genre elements. There's a little bit of blood and not too intense gore, but there's some death in this movie. There is some weird, or not weird, I don't want to kink shame. There is some sexuality in this movie. There is some social commentary in this movie. There's a lot going on within this kind of weird gumbo of class consciousness. What I will say, like, pretty much most of the movie didn't really, like, it didn't surprise me, but not in a bad way, because I'm just kind of like open for anything. I'm just like, whatever. I've seen a lot of weird movies. I was not prepared for the direction that the finale ends up going, and it's like, if you took a guess, I don't think, like, you'd ever get it, but it's a very interesting finale, like how it all ultimately resolves, in a way that it kind of made me appreciate the movie more. That it just kind of had this, like, they just really went for it, and that's all I'll say about that. It's an interesting movie. I wouldn't say it's amazing. There are some slow parts to it, but there's enough going on beneath the surface of, like, social commentary and class dynamics that it works ultimately. And I know Larry Pierce, he has put out some other movies that I've missed, from, like, Kino Classics. I think he put one out called, like, One Potato, Two Potato last year that I really wanted to check out, that I haven't yet. Now I really want to. But this is a good release. This is, once again, a 4K restoration from Studio Canal. And it has a good number of special features as well. It has an interview with Larry Pierce and one of the co-stars, and an audio commentary from film historian Daniel Kramer. So it's a pretty well-rounded release. Like I said, you love commentary tracks, so always love a good film historian track. So you get a lot of good information, and it looks really nice. So the 4K restoration from Studio Canal is nice. It's very nice. So if you're into a little bit of, like, weird class dynamic, kind of thrillery, but don't expect, like, a horror movie or anything. It's just kind of, like, odd. It's just a little bit odd. The Sporting Club, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, as you were describing that, I quickly looked up the director, and he has quite an interesting resume of, like, films and a lot of TV work. In fact, it looks like his last directing gig was 11 episodes of Touched by an Angel. So
Oh, wow. All right.
yeah, so it is quite a oh, and it looks like he also maybe did some the 60s Batman episodes, so he's had quite the interesting resume. But yeah, no, that sounds interesting, and I think that maybe even would pair well with maybe the one I just talked about.
Yeah.
With so if you want like a messed up rich people double feature, there you go.
Mhm.
Ready or Not would probably go, fit with that as like a triple bill if you wanted to. So there you go.
Yeah, you could do worse with your time. That's a fun time, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I mean, the cover really looks wild. So when you
Yeah.
said it was quite interesting, I was like, yeah,
Mental
that
note.
fits.
Pick it up in the next Kino sale.
Yeah, no, I definitely like I'm always adding to my ever-growing list slash obsession.
Yeah.
And speaking of obsession,
Hmm.
see how I did that?
Yeah.
Um Eyes of Laura Mars, which I think a lot of people remember this one only because John Carpenter wrote the screenplay.
Hmm.
And I believe it was his first like commercial like thing that he did, like as far as like he sold it, and then I think he shortly after that did Halloween. I think I'm getting that right, but anyways, here's the back. um this does have Tommy Lee Jones in it, which is weird because he's like a sex symbol sort of object, like a sex
Isn't he
object.
always?
I don't know, I think, well, I just think of him more as like the grizzled old like prospectory kind of character. I don't know.
He can still get it. He can get it.
Well, hey, listen, no shame. There's like I mean, he's not bad looking, but anyways, here, so we do have reversible art.
Yay.
Hold the phone. We do. And it's actually really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's
So that's the new
mysterious.
one, and then that's the original. So yeah, this is one of those movies that I watched it and I didn't really like it. I watched like an older release from Mill Creek, and it just did not wow me. So I wanted to like give it another chance because I know I have a couple of friends who are like film buffs, film historians that like love it, but then I have some that absolutely do not. So I was like, okay, what am I missing? Like, what am I not getting? So I gave it a fresh watch. And I have to say, it's like pretty solid. So this is basically like an American giallo. It definitely has that sort of European, like sleazy kind of thriller. But then there's like some supernatural elements, and that's something you see a lot with like Argento, Lucio Fulci, Sergio Martino. So, it does come like it does sort of have a pedigree of like weird giallo, but like in with an American flavor. That all sounds great, but the story just never really comes together in a way that feels satisfying and even coherent. Which, to be fair, is kind of in the vein of some giallos. So
True.
good
Yeah.
job, I guess. But
Nailed it.
yeah, no, I have to say, in all seriousness though, if you want a good American giallo, like Alice Sweet Alice is where it's at. But again, I would not check this out because it does have its followers. But I will say that this is very stylish. It's well acted. Faye Dunaway was just coming off an Oscar win, and again, this has a very young Tommy Lee Jones. So that's, and like this was sort of before he sort of got typecast into that sort of how do I want to say it, like deadpan straight man kind of area. So it is interesting to see like his range and like him being like young and vibrant. And again, they want you to know that Tommy Lee Jones fucks in this. So
Thank goodness.
yeah. And I will say, the one of the big problems with this is also kind of with Jones and Dunaway. They're both individually great. They don't have chemistry together I don't know if they like I seem to remember them like clashing maybe for real, but it just it just doesn't like I did not find them as a couple believable. But you know, it is what it is. So yeah, it's all right. I will say that I didn't have an awful time. It is a little bit slow in parts, and yeah, the ending is just it doesn't work for me. But I gave it another chance. It does actually look really great. I don't know if this is a new restoration versus the Mill Creek, but um it does look really good. There's a lot of like New York locations that look fantastic here. This isn't a really like vibrant looking film, but the pops of color that it does use really comes off nice. Um, and yeah, I also believe that the Mill Creek edition is bare bones, where this does have a commentary and some features. So that's really nice. I appreciate that. So if you do like this film and you just have the Mill Creek release, you might want to consider like upgrading. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that again, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to tell people not to see it. It's fine. I just didn't connect with it, but I know other people do like it. So yeah.
I'll go in with expectations and check whenever I get around to it. Uh, More Kino classics. We got a 1958 melodrama, Lonelyhearts,
Mm.
with Montgomery Clift, Robert Ryan, uh, and Myrna Loy, and which is basically the reason I sought this out because
Mm.
I have a huge crush on Myrna Loy, and she's my favorite. And she like this being 58, she's obviously uh, a few like a decade or two almost away from the Thin Man series, so she's a little bit older.
Mm.
And her role isn't like the most robust in this movie, but it's important, like her role in it. Um, so this is basically a tale of kind of kind of morally ambiguous people potentially corrupting their values and like their ideals for success. That's basically what it boils down to. Montgomery Clift plays like an aspiring writer who is friends with Myrna Loy's character, who her husband runs a newspaper, and she has her own little like subplot where she's has had issues with her husband, which there are issues with this. Like it's kind of bullshit because
Mm.
obviously like back in the day, like men could like cheat all the time, and it's even like said that he had like his own infidelities, and it was just like okay, it's whatever, it's expected. But like she stepped out once and he just like will not forgive her, and just
Mm.
like she's just like I've said I'm sorry 1,000 times. I've apologized. And he's just like, nope, don't care. And I'm just like, this is Myrna damn Loy. Okay, you need to leave her alone. You were mistreating her. You're the reason she stepped out in the first place. But that's a different rant. But she does get Montgomery Clift's character a job with her husband, begrudgingly a little bit on his behalf, but he takes over this column of like uh writing as like Miss Lonelyhearts. So it's like an advice column where people are like writing into him, and he kind of gets a little bit uh thrown off his axis of like hearing these people's stories who are like writing into him, and some of them tell him like really personal things, and he doesn't really know how to kind of handle some of the things that he's like being like the secrets that he's suddenly come into. And so this is basically a tale of like him not really wanting to like fulfill this position but he needs a job like as a writer to make money, and he also has like a girlfriend who like also really cares about him and like loves him, but he feels like he has to be like a successful like writer for her. So it's kind of like him compromising his soul and like his artistic integrity in order to write this column. And then there's also like some, it goes into some instances of him actually meeting up with some people who write into his column and kind of some of the drama that unfolds from that. I won't spoil it, but there's drama there. And it's not your typical Hollywood melodrama. There's like more, it's not as much like forbidden love as like some of the things that I've talked about like in the past, but it's like I said, more so like internal compromises, which I found very interesting, like moral compromising. All the performances are really good. I'm kind of on the newer side of the spectrum of Montgomery Clift. Like I've seen like A Place in the Sun, but I'm interested. Like every time I see him, I like him a little bit more. And Robert Ryan's really good, and like it's just a pretty solid cast all around. If this sounds interesting to you at all, it's it says a new HD master from MGM. It doesn't say 2K or 4K scan, but I did think it looked really nice. So it's a solid new HD master. Sounds good. There's no special features, not even an audio commentary, unfortunately. Well, there's a theatrical trailers, but it's a trailer. That's barely a special feature. So I'm surprised there wasn't like a historian commentary, but the movie itself is interesting enough that I would recommend it if you're like a fan of like kind of like golden age of Hollywood, like especially if you're like me. I think you're a fan of Myrna Loy as well. Yeah. I would recommend it. She's a gem, and this with all the other actors alongside her, it's a really stacked cast, and it's a well done drama. I think it's a really good release from Kino Classics.
Nice. Yeah, no, I love that cast. I'm also a big fan of Robert Ryan. So that's also a big sell for me. So yeah, I definitely want to check that out. My next title is it kind of poses the question, you like Mad Max, right? What
Of
if Mad
course.
Max, right?
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
what if Mad Max had werewolves? So
Oh boy.
Moonchild, yeah, that is this is my first one actually from Visual Vengeance. I know you've covered a couple of the previous releases, so I was pretty excited. So like this is a really cool cover. Here's the back, and it is, you see, stacked. I mean, they definitely don't phone these releases in. So take this off, and some more artwork. Back's the same, and when we open up, we got stickers, which is great. I love that. I love me a sticker moment here. So we got some, there was a Visual Vengeance sticker, but I think that might have fell out. But here's like the ones for the movie, and then you get like a really cool like sticker you can put on your stuff if you want. I actually thought maybe these were like scratch and snip, but they're not. I think that would have
How
been
many
cool.
times did you scratch it before you realized it?
Probably more than I wish to admit. So we got a poster. So it's just one-sided, but it's really cool. I love when they do stuff like that. So we also have a little booklet, and go. It is like that's all it is, but that's cool.
Yeah.
And we have more artwork. So I'm guessing this is like maybe like an original video cover art. So I like that edition. Yeah, so this I kind of had a idea of what I was getting with this, but oh, and sorry, I almost forgot, this does have the soundtrack if you are so inclined.
Cool.
So yeah, I was kind of thinking that this was going to be like a basic like werewolf movie, but then it kind of turned into like this dystopian sort of, yeah, it's almost more akin to like Star Wars than it is like American Werewolf in London, which is kind of wild. Like there's a lot of like talk about rebel factions that I was thinking like, oh yeah, this is kind of like Star Wars-ish. But yeah. So I really like this movie. It is very flawed, but I think it almost feels redundant to pick apart a movie like this that's sort of like low budget, shot on video. I really think that that's the whole charm of these movies. And I know you've like covered some of these in the past too. And um I think that's what's kind of fun about it. Like this is very ambitious. Like that's another thing that kind of I wasn't expecting. Like this does have a lot of like big ideas and big world building. It's just it kind of lacks a coherent plot. The acting talent and quality is something. I'll put it nicely. I mean, they are, but hey, like they are trying, and this movie is like fun to watch because you know that they were having a blast making it. Like it has that like down and dirty, like DIY kind of filmmaking. And again, it's funny because they do try this like a lot of these like mystical elements, a lot of like stuff that's like taken from again like Mad Max, Star Wars, like different mythologies, and they just kind of cram it all together, and you kind of get a little bit of a mess, but it's like a fun mess. And there are some like action sequences that I was like legit impressed with. Like there's a little girl character in this that I love. Like she's so awesome and badass, and I like kind of want a spin-off series with her character. But yeah, like the werewolf costume is amazing. It is so bad and wonderful, and I love it. So you kind of know what you are in for with a movie like this, and you can kind of see some of like the stills from it. It's a good time. It is a little bit slow in parts, but I will say, like, when the action is ramped up, it is a lot of fun to watch. So, definitely check it out. Again, I really love the fact that they did put a lot of love and care into this release, and I took an entire day to like pour over all this stuff, but it was fun. So yeah, definitely check it out. They have some more cool stuff on the way, so put that on your radar.
Yeah, I think the best way for me to sum up my feeling about Visual Vengeance is I love everything about Visual Vengeance releases except the movies. Like I just can't get on board with shot on video horror. That's just a personal thing, but their releases are really amazing. Like just seeing that cover art, I'm just like, I kind of want that. I'm like, no, you don't like these movies. What are you doing? They're just trying to like sucker me into getting these movies that look so cool, but I know I won't like it. It's a sickness. What are you doing to me?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree though. It's like, some like I think the marketing definitely kind of outweighs the movie, but I do love the fact that movies like this are getting a really nice like Blu-ray. And I mean, every movie, no matter how bad it is, has fans or
Yeah.
has somebody that loves it. So, that's awesome. And yeah, I would say check it out. I did have a fun time, and I do really like shot on video horror. I will admit I'm a little bit opposite of that because it just has like a gritty, again, like I don't know how else to describe it, but like a nice DIY sort of thing. And like sometimes that actually adds to the ambiance of the film. So like if it's like supposed to be like a pseudo snuff film, it does kind of look like someone just took their camcorder and was filming some crazy stuff. So
Yeah, I'm so happy for fans of this genre. I'm excited that this label exists for them. Moving on to I don't know how to transition necessarily. This is also a kind of bad movie, but you can appreciate it for what it is. This is Blind Fury from Kino Classics, which is old Rutger Hauer, everyone's favorite, rest in peace, playing a Vietnam vet who was blinded in the war. And then he was trained by some villagers. I don't know. So he was trained by some masters of like basically martial arts, whatever, and to being like skilled with a cane and being able to be like a complete badass and everything, and like control of his senses and all that type of stuff. So it's kind of like a very simple plot, like a blind badass action movie. I think you kind of know what you're getting into when you hear about like Rutger Hauer playing a blind badass, but it's basically that he the main plot as it is he goes to like visit an old like army buddy after years of like being off the grid, and at the same time this army buddy is kind of caught up in this with basically some criminals, and his family is attacked. His wife is killed. His young son is almost killed, but Rutger Hauer happens to be there and saves him and kind of goes on the road with him to try to reunite him with his father, who is also kind of in over his head with these criminals. So it's like Rutger Hauer, this blind man, on the road with a young kid, trying to keep him alive, while there are thugs after him that need this kid to be dead. So it's a classic action movie. This is from 1990. So you still have that leftover like 80s cheesy goodness, like leftover bleeding into the 90s. This isn't a masterpiece. Everyone knows this isn't a masterpiece, but it's pretty fun. Rutger Hauer, he commits. He has a very like a devilish sense of humor. This is a very odd comparison to make, but he kind of like has like an impishness similar to like Udo Kier and Swan Song, which I know you reviewed. Like he just like he's not playing a queer character or anything, but he just kind of like is kind of mischievous and like I said, impish. While he is also dispatching of thugs and stuff. The young kid, he's basic young kid actor. He's a little over the top. He's kind of like wooden a little bit, but he's serviceable. Terry O'Quinn as his old army buddy who's in over his head. He does a pretty decent job. He's not given a lot to do. He's done better work, like especially like in Lost, but he's decent here. And yeah, it is what it is. It's entertaining, but it's super cheesy, super dumb. And yeah, this is one of those like Eyes of Laura Mars, where this was released by Mill Creek just recently, I think probably in 2020. I missed out on that release, so I can't compare it. I'm pretty sure it's probably just the same master given a better encode, because this is Kino and not Mill Creek. Sorry, Mill Creek, but you don't really try too hard on your encodes. So it's a solid older master. It's not great, but it's passable. Sounds pretty decent. This like Eyes of Laura Mars, this has an audio commentary track from the screenwriter, and it's moderated by filmmaker Douglas Hosdale. So an audio commentary track is better than nothing, especially for a movie like this. I haven't listened to it yet. I still need to review it for the site, but I'm sure there's some pretty good gems on there involving Rutger Hauer. Gems are what I'm in this world to hear, so I'm excited about that. But if you're a fan of this movie, this appears to be like the release that you would like want to get. But you do you. But Kino Classics, they always deliver in my eyes, so I appreciate this.
Yeah, this is a fun release. I was really looking forward to hearing what you thought of it, because it is such a weird movie, but it is kind of fun. I do recall like when I think I did like a few years back review that Mill Creek release, and yeah, it is definitely, if you like as you were saying, if you kind of like the cover and you sort of know what you're getting into, I think you will have a good time. It is definitely like as cheesy as a film as like the cover art will does lead you to believe. So um
Absolutely.
yeah, it's fun. It's not bad. I definitely will try to pick that up sometime. Probably won't rush out to get it, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So my final title, and this kind of ties into what you're going to be talking about, is the film noir Dark Side of Cinema. This is volume 9, and we're going to be quickly getting 10 as well. But this was really a fun set, and I'm really excited to sort of dive into these. So let me get these out. So the first one that I watched was Take One False Step. And here's the cover. This has a great cast: William Powell, Shelley Winters.
Nice.
Um, Also, this is really cool, but this set and a couple films of in the next volume, volume 10, does have commentary tracks from Eddie Muller, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. I know like he doesn't do a lot of commentary tracks, so something has to be particularly special to him for him to like come out of like not retirement, but retirement with commentary tracks.
Yeah.
And on a personal note, he was really awesome to talk to. Like he was probably one of the most genuinely nice, sweet people. And that's so awesome. But anyways, this one is maybe my favorite out of this set, and this is a really solid set. But this is comes from a new 4K master from Universal, and it does look really nice. But so basically, this is kind of a fairly by the numbers, wrongly accused slash man on the run movie, which is something that like Hitchcock really made famous. And I think what really elevates this movie is obviously William Powell. Like he does so much with the character, and you could tell he was having a lot of fun with it. Like this was 1949, so it's a little bit like far removed from the Thin Man movies, but he's still bringing a lot of really good energy to it. Like it's sort of like a B programmer, but he like nobody treats it like that, which is nice. So as I said, Take One False Step doesn't reinvent the wheel, yet it really is a nicely paced noir. And the film is hard boiled, yet Powell really brings a lot of comedy and like lightness to it. There are some really nice suspense sequences, including a train yard. It's not really the finale, but it's kind of close to the finale. And the finale does end pretty satisfactory, in my opinion. I won't spoil it, but I did like where they kind of went with it. Also, this film has a really nice look, and it kind of utilizes that low-key light mood lighting that a lot of noirs kind of were known for. Um, and as I said, Eddie Muller does do a fantastic commentary track, and I did like the movie, so it was like it didn't feel like a chore to go and rewatch it with the commentary track. And he does do a great job of like talking about the making of the film, the actors, kind of where they were in their career when they made the film, and some really interesting like context. And it actually made me, I think, appreciate more of the elements. So you know, when I watch it, I'll no doubt watch this again sometime. It will make that, I think, even a nicer experience. So that's a really solid one. Maybe my least favorite one is Tangier. Um, this also has a commentary track, but not by Eddie Muller. And we got Maria Montez.
Yes. Who you talked
um,
about a few months ago.
Yeah, it all circles back. It
Yeah.
all, yeah. Tangier has been described as a low budget Casablanca, and yeah, I can definitely see that. The plot is sort of similar without it being too derivative, but you can certainly see where, I guess this was Universal. They wanted their own sort of Casablanca. Yeah, the narrative is fairly engaging, though there is moments of high melodrama that I think sort of is weird because it's a very seriously toned movie, and then you have some of these performances that are so over the top that they feel like they don't mesh with the film, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's fine. It certainly just feels sort of like a low rent, like Hitchcock slash Casablanca outing. You know, it's again fine. It's not the most amazing plot, but I enjoyed it, and Maria Montez is kind of the reason to watch this. And it is nicely shot. This is shot by Elwood Brendel, which gives a lot of mood and scope to the film. He did a lot of Universal horror films, like some of the more like B Universal horror films. But it does. I mentioned that because it does kind of have like moody, almost maybe gothic-y sort of look. So I did like that aspect. So yeah, it's fine. This comes from a new 2K scan, and it's not like perfect, but it definitely looks really clear and sharp. There is a few instances of like some like artifacts and a little bit of scratching, but it's like very faint, and you can definitely tell that they did do a lot to like clean it up. And my last one is Lady on a Train. And this is probably my second favorite, and unfortunately we don't have a track for this. We just have a trailer, which again is not really a special feature. But this also comes from a brand new 2K scan. And this one starts out with a woman. She's on a train, of course, and she like confesses to this murder. And she's like, it's like there's like, you can see like outside of the train, it's like snowing and it's very atmospheric, and you're like, oh, okay, this is like our antagonist. But then we pan out and she's reading a murder mystery. So I only mention this because I think it really sort of sets up the tone, not to mention like the book, and then the author of the book that she's reading actually does like play really big into like the mystery and the solution of it. So it is a fun way to sort of establish that tone, and also like it is like plot essential. The other thing that's kind of fun about this is it's a Christmas movie.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that. Yeah, so it's a Christmas themed whodunit, and again, it has a lot of sense of humor. The movie does depend a lot on conveniences, which stretch logic even by movie standards, but it's really breezy and it's a charming movie. And I think the holiday setting just is really the icing on the cake. There's a lot of great comedic performances that never feel like they go overboard. They just hit that sweet spot that I really like. And there are some like decent twists and a fairly satisfying ending. Again, if you are in the mood for like a cozy mystery that you can just sort of bundle up and watch, this isn't the most groundbreaking or amazing, but it's fun. And I really like this set. Like this was a really good volume overall. So I really like these like B cut, like deep cut Universal films that are getting repackaged and with some nice restoration. So I highly recommend this.
Yeah, that's great. I'm looking forward to checking out that volume. I know uh, I kind of followed your lead this year whenever I was like, oh, I've been really missing out on the Dark Side of Cinema series. I need to get more into this. So that one sounds a lot of fun. And I do appreciate the fact that we both talked about Thin Man alums
Mhm.
and like kind of their post series work. So I'm a big fan of William Powell as well. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. You just talked about a lot of film noir. You just went deep. So it's like I knew this was happening, but still, I'm going back to the beginning. I'm going back to the first volume of Film Noir, The Dark Side of Cinema, Volume 1, which is 5 movies. And I know this was released back in like 2015. And it was out of print for a while, and it was just re-released like within the past few months. And as I said, I'm trying to get caught up with this series, so I saw it was re-released. So I had to get it, had to get it. So since there are 5 movies here, I will be pretty brief as far as like plot and like getting into each of them, but I'll still give a brief overview. Um, I will say, since they came, this is the first volume. I think they tried to go with a lot of like their bigger, like more high profile titles, and a lot of these have been available like as individual releases, which I think a lot of like recent volumes they've just kept it exclusive to these sets. So I actually owned this first release I'm going to talk about separately, but everything else is new to me. And that the first one is Witness to Murder with Barbara Stanwyck, which this one, it's basically like Rear Window. That's the basic way to say it. Like Barbara Stanwyck thinks she sees a murder and no one really believes her. I think this came out like a month before Rear Window, but as the back cover art says, like Rear Window stole all the thunder and stuff. But this is a pretty like solid representation of that story. I think Barbara Stanwyck is very a great lead actress. Of course, it's Barbara freaking Stanwyck. She's great. But like George Sanders and Gary Merrill, they're both like good co-stars alongside her. So if you kind of like the Rear Window conceit, which has been done 1,000 times, we just talked about Fright Night recently. It's a very common kind of trope. Witness to Murder is a good addition to the genre. And I'll talk about the AV quality of all of them at the end. So He Ran All the Way is the next one, which is John Garfield and Shelley Winters, who you were just talking about as Shelley Winters' title. So she seemed to be make her way around this genre pretty thoroughly. This one, it's I really like this one. I think it's entertaining. I seem to like the more kind of like almost like not quite single location, but almost single location type movies. This one involves John Garfield plays a bank robber who the bank robbery goes wrong, and he runs into Shelley Winters and doesn't. He kind of like presents himself as like a potential suitor and gets himself into her apartment and her family's apartment. And then once her family gets home, kind of turns the tables on her and kind of like takes them all hostage. But there's kind of like a interesting dynamic between these two leads, because there's like an uncertain, not really completely believable, but like definitely in the script, there's like a burgeoning kind of potential romance with them. It's just like he's trying to manipulate her, but I also think he has feelings for her. So it's just kind of like that interesting dynamic of like a criminal who gets himself in over his head. He meets this woman who, in a different lifetime, they could have maybe had like a something great together, and just kind of how that unfolds in a grand dramatic fashion as the movie unfolds. I really like this one. He Ran All the Way is pretty solid. Storm Fear is another one that I really quite enjoyed, just because it's all pretty much based in character. This involves a group of criminals who go to hide out in the country during a storm, and because they're like wanted by the police and they need to hide out. So I think the main criminal goes to stay with his brother. I think that's the relationship. But the thing is, there are deep family dynamics at play that like they haven't seen each other in a while, and the criminal who's coming to stay with his brother actually had a a thing with the dude's wife back in the day. So it's kind of bringing up all these old dramatic turns. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's like history there that's brought up to the surface that they kind of all have to deal with while they are just criminals on the run. So it's kind of like a pot boiler, nice internal single location like mystery noir. Really enjoyed this one. Some good performances in there too. This has actually Cornell Wilde, Gene Wallace, and Dan Duryea, I believe. Duryea. So quite enjoyed this one. Okay, this next one, it's something. Because it's not in that like a lot. Like I'm like, this is something. It's not crazy, but it's like very dark, like more dark than I would expect from 1955. And that is Big House USA, which has Roger Crawford, young Charles Bronson, Lon Chaney Jr., Ralph Meeker, Reed Hadley. It's a stacked cast. What really surprised me about this one is like the basic start of this tale. This looks like a completely prison tale, but that's only like a small part of it. It starts out with like the murder of a child, and, which lands them in the big house. But then there's like it's a prison break. But like I was just like, oh, they really went for it with this one. Like just like dispatching of a child and like the consequences that come with that. And there's some really good character work in this. It's a solid prison break drama as well, because they're like breaking out of prison to try to find like a fortune that is hidden. And it's like I said, I appreciated that they really didn't like. I'm surprised this should have been still during the Hays Code, so I'm surprised it got away with some of the stuff it did, but it was very entertaining. Finally, A Bullet for Joey, which has the perfect pairing of Edward G. Robinson and George Raft. They are always great together. This might be my least favorite in the set, but that's just kind of relative to the quality of the rest of the set. Because this one is more like espionage, and it's not as internalized. It's more sprawling. Like there's a lot of different layers of like Edward G. Robinson, like kind of holding court as like the main gangster figure who is like kind of pulling the puppet strings and trying to like overall execute his grand plan for his crew. So, and George Raft is kind of, he's on his crew, but he's also kind of has more of a conscience than anyone else. So it's kind of like a crisis of conscience and like espionage and all that stuff. That I tried to go as quickly as I could throughout those movies because, like I said, there's 5 of them. You can tell that Kino in the intervening years, they've really started to up their game with these releases, because this first release, while it's really solid, there are no audio commentary tracks on any. There's just trailers throughout, so you don't get like those special features that you really love to see on these releases. And this is from 2015, so that's 7 years ago. And while most of the track or the presentations look good overall, some even pretty great, there are a few that I feel, if given the same like movie given a new scan in the modern day, it could look a lot better. Especially like A Bullet for Joey and Witness to Murder kind of seemed a little bit lacking in comparison to some of the others. So I have no, like, this is just me pulling stuff like out of a hat, but like I would not be surprised to see these eventually get remastered at some point. But as it is right now within the set, they're perfectly serviceable looking, and you want to own these movies. I just think they could look a little bit better. The sound is pretty decent for what it is. There's still some a little underlying hiss and some pops at times, but it holds up pretty well. But it's the movies that are the star of this, and I'm glad that they did re-release this. I'm not quite sure which was the title that kind of held this one up for a while, but all of these are pretty fun to one degree or another. So if you're OCD like me, I know you are. I know you want to own all of them. So like I still have like I think like 2 through 6 I need to catch up on or something like that. So I still have a way to go, but like they keep pumping them out. Like I said, 10 is right behind 9,
Yep.
and like I think 11 and 12 has already been released, but are going to be released before the end of the year. So
Yeah.
it's pretty wild. They're just pumping these out, and I appreciate it. I think it's a fun way to like get a lot of good movies in like one pretty nice value package size.
Yeah, and no, that's like great reviews, and I think also I think they are doing a better job of like curating as far as like a they don't always have a theme, but they usually do feel like all the movies feel like coherent. They don't just seem like random
Yeah.
like titles. Like just a little tease for the next one. I know the titles are already available. You can look them up, so it's not like a spoiler. But all three of the next volumes are boxing noirs, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And as I said, Eddie Muller has some commentary tracks, and again, he doesn't do those a whole lot. But I I believe I'm accurate in saying that I thought he said that his dad was a boxer, so I think that that was maybe that connection that he really likes those kind of movies. And I just like literally just got done watching the first one out of that, and it's really fantastic. So I'm already kind of enjoying this next set. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's really fun. I actually just ordered the volume one, which is on sale right now. So yes, I am very OCD even,
Yeah.
or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
dyslexic too, so it's backwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a really fun one to end on because yeah, that is a really fantastic set. And it is interesting, as you said, to see like how far they've come with adding extra features and some really nice like commentary tracks, for example. Yeah, that's awesome. And uh I'm sure by the time this gets listed, it'll still be on sale, might even be cheaper. So that's always a win. Because I'm a collector, but I'm very frugal and I'm like, I'm a cheapskate. So, you know,
Oh, same. Yeah.
um, so yeah, that's awesome. That's like a nice way to sort of like bookend with two film noir sets. We're also coming into Noirvember, so that's definitely a good time to stock up on these. As always, definitely consider giving this video a like. We're not doing a giveaway, but we always appreciate you chiming in the comments and like telling us what you thought of the films that we reviewed. Like, what are some things that maybe should be on our radar?
Yeah.
That's the one thing that's kind of nice about films is there's so much stuff coming out that there's a lot of stuff that I think is at least escapes me. So, and as always, just thanks for hanging out with us.